Have you ever felt out of place in the world? As if your way of seeing life was too naive for the reality around you? Maybe you've been called foolish or naive for believing in people's goodness. But what if I told you that this feeling of being an idiot has a much deeper meaning than it seems? Dostoevsky, one of the greatest writers in history, explored this idea in his novel The Idiot, a story that makes us question, is being good in a corrupt world a sign of weakness or greatness? The protagonist, Prince Mishkin, is a man with a pure soul, someone who sees the world with compassion and sincerity. But instead of being admired, he is ridiculed, deceived, and seen as a fool. Why? In this video, we will dive into Dostoevsky's mind and understand what it means to be an idiot in the author's vision. Does genuine kindness have a place in a world driven by self-interest and hypocrisy? Or in the end, is the real fool the one who despises purity? Take a deep breath and come with me on this journey. You might be surprised by what you'll discover. Imagine a man who knows no malice, someone who does not see people as pieces in a game of interests, but as human beings worthy of compassion. A man who does not lie, does not manipulate, does not seek to take advantage of others. Now, place this man in a world where cleverness is celebrated, where deception is a survival tool, and where kindness is met with suspicion. What happens to him? This is the dilemma of Prince Mishkin, the protagonist of The Idiot. He is not a fool in the conventional sense of the word. On the contrary, he is a deeply sensitive man, endowed with a rare emotional intelligence. But to those around him, his kindness seems naive, almost absurd. Dostoevsky builds Mishkin as an archetype of purity in a corrupt world. He is a man who does not know how to play social games, who does not manipulate, who does not lie. And because of this, he is seen as a stranger, an outsider. But is the problem with him or with the society that surrounds him? Mishkin is a man who feels too much. He perceives the pain of others, suffers from injustices, and empathizes even with those who despise him. His sensitivity is not a weakness, but a burden. And here arises the great question: can absolute kindness survive in a world that values cunning and deception, or is it inevitably doomed to be crushed? The philosopher Émile Cioran wrote that the torment of existence is more intense for those who feel too much. And Mishkin feels everything. He does not just see the world's pain, he absorbs it. His empathy is so deep that, in many moments, he seems to carry the suffering of others as if it were his own. But the world has no patience for the sensitive. Society does not know how to deal with those who do not follow its implicit rules. And so, Mishkin is not just rejected, he is ridiculed, deceived, and used. His kindness, which should be admired, is seen as weakness. Dostoevsky invites us to reflect: do we despise kindness because it reminds us of how flawed we are? Do we mock the naive because, deep down, we know they are purer than us? Mishkin is not an idiot. But in a world where cleverness is celebrated and compassion is seen as naivete, perhaps the real fool is the one who still believes in goodness. If Prince Mishkin is a man with a pure soul, then the society around him is a distorted mirror, where truth is suffocated by cynicism and hypocrisy. Dostoevsky sets The Idiot in 19th century Russia, a period of transition where old traditions clashed with new ideas. The decaying aristocracy struggled to maintain its influence while a new class emerged, bringing different values, but not always nobler ones. It was a time of change, but also of contradictions. Society saw itself as modern and progressive, yet remained trapped in old vices: the pursuit of status, the obsession with appearances, the need to maintain a respectable facade, even if it meant living a lie. And in this setting, Mishkin appears as a dissonant element. He does not play social games, does not fake emotions he does not feel, does not manipulate to gain advantages. And that makes people uncomfortable, because the truth makes people uncomfortable. Dostoevsky delivers a fierce critique of social hypocrisy. He shows us a society that prides itself on its morality, but in practice despises those who truly live by ethical principles. Mishkin, with his almost childlike sincerity, exposes this hypocrisy without even trying. He does not need to point fingers. His mere existence is already a challenge to the world around him. Nietzsche wrote, "No one lies as much as the indignant," and Dostoevsky seems to agree. In his novel, the characters who most proclaim their virtue are often the most corrupt. They are outraged by Mishkin's naivete, but deep down, what truly bothers them is the mirror he represents, because Mishkin forces them to face an uncomfortable truth. They are not as good as they would like to believe. The society portrayed in the book, and in many ways our own, values cleverness, deception, and the ability to manipulate to get ahead. Mishkin's kindness is not just misunderstood, it is seen as a threat, and here arises an unsettling reflection. Do we despise kindness because it reminds us of how flawed we are? Do we mock the naive because, deep down, we know they are purer than us? Dostoevsky forces us to confront this question, and as the story progresses, it becomes clear that society does not just reject Mishkin, it punishes him for being different. If Mishkin's kindness was already an inconvenience to society, his insistence on remaining good becomes his sentence. He not only refuses to play social games, he unintentionally dismantles them, exposing the hypocrisy and cynicism around him. But in a world where cleverness is celebrated and deception is a survival tool, being genuinely good is not a virtue. It is a condemnation. Mishkin is a martyr without glory. He does not fight for a cause, does not seek recognition, does not wish to change the world. He simply is, and that alone is enough for him to be rejected. His kindness is not aggressive, not imposing, but paradoxically it is unbearable to those around him. Society does not know how to deal with someone like him, because accepting Mishkin would mean admitting that true goodness is possible, and that is a problem. Because if absolute kindness exists, then everyone else is forced to confront their own flaws, their own moral compromises, their own masks, and the world does not want that. That is why Mishkin is not just ignored, he is ridiculed, deceived, and used. His compassion is exploited, his sincerity is seen as weakness, his kindness is treated as a flaw. He becomes an easy target for those who thrive on manipulation and self-interest, and so begins his downfall. Not a sudden fall, but a slow and painful process of destruction. Little by little, Mishkin is crushed under the weight of the world. He does not become cynical, he does not corrupt himself, but his soul begins to fragment under the impact of reality. He tries to love, he tries to help, he tries to save those around him, but in the end, it is he who needs saving. But no one saves him, because deep down, society does not want him to survive. Mishkin is a constant reminder that the world could be different, and that is unbearable for those who have already accepted the harshness of life as inevitable. Dostoevsky shows us that Mishkin's tragedy is not just his destruction, it is the fact that his destruction was inevitable. The world is not prepared for absolute goodness, and those who dare to be too good end up crushed by the weight of a society that does not know what to do with them. And so Mishkin, the man who only wanted to love and understand, ends his journey not as a hero, but as a shadow of what he once was. Not because he failed, but because the world failed him. Mishkin's tragedy is not just the story of a good man being crushed by a cynical world. It is a philosophical experiment. Dostoevsky does not create Mishkin just to make us pity him. He builds him as a mirror, a reflection of what society refuses to see. And to understand why Dostoevsky wrote The Idiot, we need to look at his own life. Dostoevsky was not a distant theorist. He knew human nature from the inside out. As a young man, he was imprisoned for his political ideas and sentenced to death. At the last moment, his sentence was commuted to forced labor in Siberia. He spent years living among criminals, murderers, and thieves. And in the midst of this chaos, he discovered something disturbing. He realized that human beings are not simply good or evil. We are a battlefield of passions, contradictions, and opposing impulses. The same man who can commit a heinous crime can also show genuine compassion. The same heart that harbors hatred can also harbor love. And this vision of human nature permeates all of his work. Dostoevsky did not believe in easy answers. He did not see the world in black and white. To him, human beings were walking paradoxes, capable of greatness and misery, of sacrifice and selfishness, of redemption and destruction. And Mishkin is proof of that. He is a pure man, but his purity does not transform the world around him. On the contrary, it exposes the worst in people. His kindness does not inspire others to be better. It unsettles them, irritates them, makes them feel vulnerable. Because Mishkin does not just exist, he reveals. He reveals the hypocrisy of those who pretend to be virtuous. He reveals the moral corruption of those who claim to be just. He reveals the emptiness of those who live only for their own self-interest. And, in the end, the world cannot bear that mirror. Dostoevsky forces us to face an uncomfortable truth. Perhaps we do not reject kindness because it is naive, but because it forces us to confront the darkest parts of ourselves. And that is Mishkin's great tragedy. He is not destroyed because he failed. He is destroyed because the world cannot bear the truth he represents. At the end of The Idiot, Dostoevsky leaves us with a disturbing question. Who is the real idiot? Is it Mishkin, for believing in goodness in a world that does not value it? Or is it society for rejecting what could redeem it? This question does not belong only to the 19th century. It echoes to this day. We live in an era where cleverness is exalted, where vulnerability is seen as weakness, where kindness is often mistaken for naivety. How many times do we admire those who manipulate and look down on those who are simply good? Society has changed, but human nature remains the same. We still live in a world where compassion is exploited, where sincerity is ridiculed, where purity of heart is met with suspicion. And this leads us to an unsettling reflection. Have we learned anything since Dostoevsky? Or do we still punish those who dare to be different? T.S. Eliot wrote, "This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. Perhaps the destruction of goodness does not happen in a grand way, but subtly, through contempt, indifference, and mockery. Perhaps the world does not need great catastrophes to be lost, only the refusal to value what truly matters. And so, we return to the initial question. Who is the real idiot? Mishkin, for believing in goodness, or us, for not knowing what to do with it? Dostoevsky once wrote that beauty will save the world. But what kind of beauty did he mean? Not superficial beauty, empty, and reduced to mere appearances, but the beauty of truth, of compassion, of genuine kindness, exactly what Mishkin represents. But if kindness is rejected, if purity is ridiculed, if sincerity is seen as weakness, how can this beauty save the world? Perhaps Dostoevsky was not giving us an answer, but challenging us to reflect. Perhaps beauty can only save the world if we have the courage to accept it. And that is the great question left for us. Are we ready for that? Now, I want to hear your opinion. Do you think kindness still has a place in today's world? Or, like Mishkin, are those who try to be too good doomed to be crushed? Leave your comment and share your thoughts. Let's continue this conversation. And if you enjoy deep reflections like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we explore the great questions of life, literature, and psychology, always seeking to understand a little more about ourselves and the world around us. See you in the next video.